Hello, trumpet players. So today we're going to talk about something a little bit different that you probably won't hear from most other teachers, trumpet teachers. Um, and that's just about how different we really are from each other. You know, there are a lot of people online who actually believe that everybody plays the same, that the only thing different from one person to the next is how we talk about it. They think that everyone's saying basically the same thing, but from a different perspective or using different words. You'll commonly hear people say, well, it's a semantic argument. In other words, what word are you using? What word am I using? And I have never believed that. There isn't just one way to play. And in fact, I believe there's as many different ways to play the trumpet as there are people. Now, you can generalize some things, but in terms of the overall package, we are all completely different. So just to demonstrate how different we really are, I like to look at three areas of your life. Let's look at where you came from, where you are now, and where you're going. Okay? So right now I have a student that's 6 years old. Can you imagine that student when he's in high school? Most students, when they graduate from high school, barely have 5 years under their belt. Now, isn't he going to have a very different background from the typical high school student? And what about students that start as a beginner? I have a student who started with me as a beginner um, when he was 58, something like that. Never played trumpet before. And not even just talking about when did they start, how did they start? Did they have a trumpet teacher when they started? Did they figure it out by themselves? Did they have a band director teach them how to do stuff? What did they learn when they started? Did they learn uh, just the embouchure? Did they learn nothing about the embouchure? Did they learn rhythms? Did they learn how to read? How about students that learned piano before they started playing trumpet? And now we're just talking about the beginners. What about those that we're teaching that have been playing for 5 years and had teachers that taught them this set of priorities, and then those teachers over there teach that set of priorities? So you can see that just from an educational perspective, where we're coming from can be extremely different from one person to the next. What about culturally? Right now, I have students from 5, 6 different cultures. You know, I don't want to reveal, but trust me, we're talking about students from um, cultures that come from all over the world. Don't those cultural differences make a difference in the way we approach the trumpet? I believe they do. Now, how about physical differences? Where are you coming from? Do you have braces? Do you not have braces? Are you like me and have messed up teeth? You know, I have 3 corners in my front teeth, and I have to get my mouthpiece over that. That's part of where I'm coming from, right? Do you have straight teeth? Do you have an overbite? Do you have an underbite? You see all these things that go into just making that part of us different. Where are we coming from? There's so many variables that even just on that level, where we're coming from is extremely different from one person to the next. And the what else? Now let's look at where we are right now. Every single one of us is at a different place right now. In the same way that we're talking about where we're from, Physically, where are we right now? If you have braces now, you're going to be getting them off later, right? If you don't have braces, maybe you're going to get braces later. Um, are you athletic? Are you going to become athletic? Right? You have so many of these different things. Are you in school right now? Do you have a job? What takes up most of your time? Do you have all day to practice? Uh, you see what I'm saying? There are different conditions that determine how different we are right now. And then let's look at so that's not as impactful, right? But let's now look at where we're going, because that's another problem with this assumption that we're all the same. What if you want to be a jazz player? The advice that a classical guy gives you, he may be extremely successful as a classical player. But the advice that he gives you, even though it might be right on, if the classical player says you don't have a clean tongue, you probably do need to work on your tongue. If the classical player says you need to play better in tune, you probably do need to play in tune. But I promise you that there's a bunch of stuff that you'll need to be able to play jazz that the classical player will not be able to give you. All right? So, and each one of us is going to a different place. It's extremely narrow-minded to assume that every single one of us wants the same thing. And so, someone who just wants to be in an orchestra, that's all they want. I tell people, if what you want is to be in an orchestra, I tell them, don't study with me. At least not primarily. If there's stuff you want to learn from me, that's fine. But if you're going to rely on me to help you make an orchestra, you're barking up the wrong tree. I can't help you with that. That's not something that I've been successful with. I mean, I've been in an symphony orchestra and I've been orchestrally trained, but there are so many great players out there that's what they do. And I can't give you that level of advice in the area of where they excel. Okay? Some players, let me just give you an idea of the kind of players' goals that I've had as a teacher. The students have had when they come to me as their teacher. I've had students that wanted to be cumbia players, salsa players, brass quintet players. There have been some that wanted to be all-round, just great, like, what do you call it, studio players. There have been, I've taught a lot of trumpet players that wanted to be good jazz players. And even within that genre, when we say jazz, there's different kinds of jazz. I have a student right now that wants to play just like Chet Baker. He prefers mostly ballads. And that's what he wants to do. Right? That's where he wants to go. And I think a lot of teachers might tell a student like that that's a stupid goal, that's a stupid objective. But if the guy's not trying to make a living at this, how can you say that? It's not a stupid goal. That's just what this guy wants to do. And so, I think there's this false idea that there's some sort of hierarchy with teachers, that the best teachers are at the top. And, I really believe that. So, yes, there are better teachers and worse teachers. I'm not going to say that's not true. But I think what's more important is how appropriate they are for your goals. And that's why it's so very important for you to listen to the teacher, his performances, her performances. It's so very important to listen to, and also the students. Listen to that teacher's students. And so that's important for several reasons. But one of the reasons is to make sure that the way he plays is aligned with the way you want to play. Okay? And if that's not the case, then you should be seeking instruction from someone that does what you want to do. And so that's one very, very important reason to hear that teacher performing. It's extremely important. But yes, we are all very different. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my teaching. This is not an ad, it's just part of the subject, what we're talking about. If it was an ad, I would have done this a long time ago. Okay, we're creeping up on 300 videos here. So yeah, you can trust me. This is not, I'm not just advertising my lessons. But the way I operate is to assume first that each one of you is different. You are a unique individual. You're unique where you're coming from. You're unique where you are right now, and you're unique where you want to go. Those three things combined make you a individual. So there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all trumpet method. What I have is a teaching method, and the teaching method adapts to the individual. So when the students come in, very first thing I do, in fact, I give a free lesson at the beginning, right? Why am I giving a free lesson? Part of it is the, feeling each other out. We want to make sure, some of it's because I don't want to teach a student that's not reliable and won't show up to the lessons, and we can find out when we have the consultation, right? And also they want to come and see, is this something I want to do, right? But in that free consultation, a lot of times we'll sit down and say, go through this. Where are you? Where were you? Where are you going? And then I will summarize, what can I do to help you get to where you want to go? And I think that's extremely important. So there are times, so most of you know already that I've written plenty of books. I've written more than my share of trumpet books. I think it's important to note, however, that I don't teach all of my students out of those books. There is no, in that context, there is no Eddie Lewis method. The method is not your method. The method is my method. I have a method that helps me work with the individual as an individual. I think that's, I don't think any of my books have been labeled as a trumpet method, right? Now, one thing I will say though, even though I don't use my books for every single student, I use my books for most students. And why is that possible? It's because I took this difference into account. You know what? Let's talk about one more of those differences, because there are a lot of people who think that we all play basically the same mechanics, and that's not true. We have different mechanics. Some people use a higher tongue arch, some people use more what they call compression, and I like the way that Bob Finley put it. He says we use different balances of sources of resistance. And so that's that should have gone under the category of where are we right now? And you know what a lot of people will do is they'll tell you that the combination of resistance you're using is not correct. You have to make it like their combination of resistance. So if they use a high tongue arch for the high notes, then you need to use a high tongue arch for the high notes. And if they use, lip compression, then you need to use lip compression. But that's an overly simplistic approach to teaching. It doesn't take into account the other things that may have influenced why you do what you do. There's reasons why. They're forgetting that what led up to now is important. Okay, so yes, I don't normally talk badly about other teachers, and that's not what I'm doing now either. It's just, I think it's important. This is why I'm making the video. I think it's important to understand that we are all very, very different. There are certain physical properties of the trumpet that are set in stone. They are scientifically sound, okay? But how we make those things work as individuals tends to be extremely different from one to the next. And that's without even talking about the stylistic stuff, all right? So where do you apply this knowledge now? By now, you should understand everybody's different, right? You should understand everybody's different. Okay, now what do you do with that? Well, you be careful with what you do with the advice you hear. Keep in mind that the advice you hear, especially here on YouTube, the advice that you hear may not be for you. Okay? Keep that in mind at all times. You should always also use this information, like I said earlier, to help you find the proper teacher for you. I don't like the whole high note thing. I can do it, I can teach it. But if that's what you are primarily interested in, is being able to play high, that's your thing. I'm not gonna mock you, and I know some of my earlier videos might have sounded like I was mocking high note guys, but it's not really true. I just think that if you're gonna do the high note stuff, do it well. Don't play horrible and think that's okay just because you're playing high notes. That's the only criticism I have of the high note stuff, is that it's not okay to sound horrible. And I can't stress that enough, because there are a lot of you out there that do play horrible, that you think it's okay because you can play high. But anyway, that's a side issue. What I'm saying is, if that's your thing, if playing high is your thing, don't let someone tell you that you shouldn't be doing that. Okay? Anyway, so that's what I have for you. I wanted you to understand how different we are and apply that to what you listen to and how you find yourself a teacher. Because and you know what? Let me end with this. Stay the course. What it is you get your sights on, go in that direction. Don't let people sidetrack you because they are narrow-minded. If you want to be, let's say, an acid jazz player or a country western trumpet player, or you see what I'm saying? Or you want to do like experimental stuff, don't lose track of that as your objective. Now, if later you mature and decide, you know what, that doesn't really do it for me anymore, right? That's fine too. But I don't think it's fine to have someone tell you, I've had so many people in my past that told me that what I was doing was wrong or stupid and stuff like that. And if I hadn't stayed the course, I wouldn't be where I am today. Um, and I like where I'm at today. In terms of the music, there's other things I would like to be better, but in terms of the music, I'm very happy with the quality of work I'm doing, the kind of work that I'm doing, and all of that stuff, right? But I can tell you, if I had been swayed by some of those people, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today, and I wouldn't be as how do you put it? I wouldn't be as grateful as I am today for everything that's happened. I don't think I think I would be bitter, you know. Anyway, so that's what I have for you today. Everybody's different, and what those differences that you have, that's what makes you beautiful. All right? And I know that sounds like hippie talk. I'm not a hippie, but sometimes that kind of talk is justifiable. All right. All right. Well, God bless you, and I'll see you on the next video.